Good morning, afternoon, evening to you. Today, what I'm going to do is show you the next stage of rehab that I'm at, the next stage, the next thing that I'm doing. So, I'm still only, I have still only got the range of motion set to 30 degrees on the braces, on the brace on the right leg. So, I'm just going to do movements to that. But what I realised last night is I was lifting my leg up in the braces and I could get it to touch this. So what I'm going to try and do, I don't know if you can see under here, is I'm going to try and do reps to touch this. You see it's just moving there. So this is now a good way for me to progress because I have a set height to aim for instead of sort of making it up. So this is about 30 degrees of flexion for my knee. So this is cool. It's like a new range of motion, I guess. I've been looking more at like other people's rehab and stuff, and some people are walking like a couple of days post-op, which is it seems insane. Like with Zimmer frame and with the legs fixed, that would have made things much easier to be honest. But I think it's because of the injury on my left leg, which obviously I'm still not doing anything for. That makes that sore. But look at that now. You can fully see daylight between it. I can actually hold it up there as well. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday evening, I was getting a bit frustrated because, so with my leg here, like that, I, I can't lift my foot up, which sounds ridiculous, but like I literally cannot lift my foot. Like, so holding my leg there, let me try and move where you are. Holding my leg where it is. Let's see if this works. Nearly. You can kind of see me. I scooch back here. So if I hold my knee up there and I put in like I'm obviously not going 100% effort, but I put in a fair bit of effort. I don't know if you can see my quad is contracting, but my heel just doesn't move. And like, yeah, before the accident, I had decent sized calves, but they're tiny now, so it's definitely not from that. So that's like mildly frustrating. The whole thing, as I was talking to Rach about this either last night or the night before, of that if it was a case of you're safe to do stuff, the repair is whatever the repair is, it's just a case of doing the rehab now, that would make it so much easier because then I could be like, cool, I'll just do as much rehab as I want. Like, it doesn't matter about the pain or whatever, just get on with it and do it. That would have made it much simpler. But obviously, that's not the case. Have to let things heal and recover. It just takes time with these things, doesn't it? So there's not really much to go through in terms of an update with my legs. So the last video will have been maybe 2 days ago or so. I didn't really do anything yesterday. I was just working all day. So I more or less was just sat with my laptop. I did a little bit of exercise. I think I did like 3 sets of 20 preacher curls with the 4 kilo dumbbells and 3 sets of 20 skull crushers with the 10 kilo dumbbell, not dumbbells. What I'm gonna do today is, once I'm done with this bit, I'm going to try ringing some taxi companies because I found some taxi companies online which will transport wheelchair users, but they don't transport wheelchairs where your legs are extended because that obviously makes you longer. So you have to have your legs bent, and I can't bend mine at the minute. So like you'd have to be like actually sat in a chair rather than in a chair with your legs out front the way that I am. So I'm trying to find someone that can do that because, so I thought it was going to be ages before I needed or wanted to use more weights and stuff. But with only a single dumbbell, and I'm limited to how I can do it, I'm kind of running out of stuff I can do practically with them. Even just stuff that's like interesting. So yeah, I want to try and get to a gym to do some exercise. That would be good. And also it'd be good to be able to have the variety because the other thing I don't want to do is end up getting like an overuse injury or something like that, or like tendonitis or whatever. So I think I'm kind of like ready and wanting to go back to doing some upper body stuff. I would love to go to a gym that's got machines that I can use, But the problem with that still is my legs have to be extended straight out in front. So I wouldn't say there was like a rowing machine, like a chest supported row. I wouldn't be able to get in position because I have to have my legs like this to actually be able to do it. So I think we've talked about trying to sort out stuff in the garage so I can go in there. But realistically, I wouldn't. The only exercise I would actually be able to do in there would be like a behind the neck pull down, because the I've got a pull down attachment in the in the rig, which you'll be able to see if you go back like 5 videos or whatever. Um, I'd have to wheel the wheelchair forwards, and I'd still have to be a fair bit of distance away because of my legs. So the only way I could do it would be to be backwards on it. And the other thing I thought was like, oh, well, I could bench there. I can't because I'd need to get the wheelchair next to the bench to be able to get onto the bench, and I can't do that. So basically, the garage is useless. What I could do, you know what? You just gave me an idea, which is stupid. I don't know why I didn't think of it. I could bench outside the rack. So yeah, actually, there's a solution to that. I could bench outside the rack. It would just be the problem with that would be getting Rachel to get everything out. I don't want her to end up knackering her back. And then the other problem with that is I've only got 20 kilo plates more or less, so I don't want her to knacker her back doing that because she's also looking after me and doing other stuff. So then that's why like the CrossFit gym would be handy because they have like a cable that's like looped over a rig. So then I could use that for stuff. I could use rings. That's kind of the place that I'm thinking I'm probably going to go. I haven't actually spoken to the owners yet because I'm going to need to ask them if I can pay. So they have like an open gym membership, I think. So I'm going to need to see if I can do that as well. So yeah, that's it. Food wise as well, I'm still trying to eat between 4,000 and 4,500 calories. Like I'm gaining some fat, but not as much as I kind of thought I would. Presumably just because it's going towards recovery. So that's not a bad thing. What I will do is I'll do some more technique reviews. The last technique review wasn't that great just because there wasn't a right lot to correct for it. But this time we'll see who we've got. I'm gradually going to get caught up with these and we'll go from there. And then work-wise today, I have got four new training blocks to write. Only one of them is a full macro cycle, so 3 of them. So what I tend to do is I will plan out like big picture stuff of like, say you got a competition in 6 months or something. I'll plan out roughly what I want each phase to be based on life events and whatever else. So like say someone's got a holiday coming up or this or that or whatever. And the next thing I'll do is roughly plan out the training blocks. So within that, it might be like, right, this slot we're going to be working on this weakness, that weakness, whatever. But then the exact loads, sets, reps, weights, specific exercises, they're more variable. So 3 of the training blocks won't take too long to do because they're kind of like the skeleton for them is already laid out. It's just the specifics that need sorting out. So that shouldn't be too bad. The one full one, I like doing that. I like the big picture planning stuff. So I got them to do, and then actual athlete technique reviews. They take much longer. So the technique reviews that I'm doing on this is kind of just watching the video, going through it. The athlete ones, I'll be watching the video, comparing it to previous video. I'll be using the tracker software to look at the velocity of certain things if I need to. That's more of a thing when it's someone who's either new or has hit like a new low threshold, so a new PB lift at like an absolute grinder or whatever, something to look at. And looking at weaknesses and stuff. So I've got that to do. And then I've got 3 or 4 consultations to do today, so that's not too bad. And then there's like obviously my leg rehab. Because yesterday I did the basically arms. Today I will just be doing my leg rehab, I think, and then tomorrow we'll go out and I'll try and go for like a longer ride, a longer wheel if I can, if the weather's nice. If the weather's not nice, then I'll just be doing some exercise in here. I think that's it. Like that's a general overview of everything. So I will be this weekend, on Sunday, will mark 5 weeks post op. So technically, this left side I can start working on, but they also told me, so all of the instructions, instead of doing them from the day, wait till the Wednesday after. So instead of 5 weeks, 5.5 weeks, instead of 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, and so on. I've submitted like a request access information, to get all of the information about the whole situation, but I still don't have the exact information on the way they did the operation on my left side. I think I already said about this before. I was going to ring the secretary of the surgeon, but given that I'm seeing the surgeon next Wednesday, I thought by the time I speak to them, get back, like it's 4 days until I'll actually get to speak to them, and it's not going to change anything in the next 4 days in terms of what I do, because it would be that same day of seeing them of when I can actually increase the range of motion on this side. And I will do the same thing again of, instead of going straight to 45, it'll be just 20 degrees first, and then 30, 40, and so on. Rationale for that is because I know that if I've got the range of motion, I'll be like, I'll just use the range of motion. I don't want to do that and risk re-tear, re-rupture, as I said about before. I've got lots and lots of very kind and very positive comments from people, which is very nice. Lots of people that I like barely ever speak to sent nice messages and stuff, so that's always appreciated. Um, Something that would be useful actually is ideas for food, because so I just kind of keep eating this much food. I know there are people that eat more, but eating this much food and not being active does start to become like hard work is not the right word. It starts to become, you're just disinterested in it. So I've still got some of these 40 sips, which are basically the things that they give to patients that have issue with nutrition and stuff. So one of these is like 250 calories and about 20 grams of protein. So two of them, or two or three of them, and some fruit can get you up to 7, 8, 900 calories in what's effectively just doing a couple of shots. So that's been handy, but obviously they're going to run out at some point. And then I've been having lots of tuna and eggs and stuff like that. So like with the tuna, for example, I've been getting. We already had in the garage or whatever, like 1 kilo tins of tuna. So Rachel's been mixing one of them with like loads of mayonnaise and sweet corn and onions and stuff. Because the thing is, as well, eating this much food and being very active, you don't have to have a crazy amount of fiber for everything to keep moving, because as you walk, it obviously moves stuff around. If you're eating this much food and you're not being very active, things don't necessarily digest as best as they could be. So you need to make sure you keep enough fiber in. If you're having enough fiber, that can mean that it just bulks out the food. So then the food becomes even more food that you need to eat, especially when it's not that exciting foods to eat. Um, so I've been trying to make sure I eat plenty of fruit and veg and stuff. So every meal there's at least one fruit and or veg. Usually there's more, but like, so this meal, if you can count it as that, is two 40 sips and a banana. That will basically, so it's fairly, what is it, like 8 o'clock ish now. So I basically just have these as like a shot. So then I've had some food. I always find when I'm eating this much, I'm never hungry before the first time I eat, and then it's like once I've started eating for the day, I can then eat more for the day. So something like this is real easy to just shot it, like I say. One thing we have done today, which will be good, I think, is I made some barbecue pulled pork. I say we. Rachel brought the ingredients, and again, it was just a thing if I mashed them together, and then that's gone on in the slow cooker. So we're gonna have barbecue pulled pork. I think we're gonna have like jacket potato type thing with the pulled pork, some lactose free cheese, um, something like that for tea. So that'll be good. And the meals before, so I'm gonna have 40 sip stuff. Then I'll probably have. I think we've got some chicken cooked actually, so it'll be chicken. I'll probably have rice and put some honey or something on it like that, some kind of sauces. Um, then the next meal will probably be eggs, hash browns, beans, something like that, again with more fruit. Then the next meal will probably be either tuna or mince, something like that, with I think I might have some oats peanut butter jam, something like that. Again with some more fruit, and then dinner will be the pulled pork stuff. And then after dinner, it'll depend whatever calories I've got left. I am tracking stuff. I would go through it with the tracking, but it's on my phone, and you are on my phone. So anyway, what I thought was going to be like a 2 minute intro has been a quarter of an hour of me just talking absolute nonsense. If anyone has any questions or anything, let me know. Oh yeah, and the other thing with the work stuff is, well, that's the stuff I have to do today, and then there's the stuff that I need to do that are for moving things forwards. So there's different tiers of like work stuff. So for example, this is technically part of some of the work stuff that I do. It doesn't directly affect the revenue or anything like that with the business today, but the work, if you can call it that, of this, and just editing and uploading this is something that will affect things in a year's time and 2 years' time and future time. And things like posting on social media, although it's not my favourite thing to do, it's a very easy thing to do that does help generate leads for the online coaching side of things, the strength coaching. So that's like a work thing, that's like a easy work thing. I wouldn't really count that as proper work, because it doesn't really take any effort, does it? But it is still something that needs doing. And then there's actual proper work stuff, so like projects. So like the members area, I've been testing different bits and pieces to get that set up. Um, so I won't go into all the details, but basically, I'm looking at integrating two different platforms and how you can get access based on a set time period between the two. So I'm trying to figure out the automations to get that to work without me having to manually do it. So this is effectively so that so what happens at the minute is if you get signed up, so I have restructuring the coaching around a little bit. So there's effectively only going to be two main options now. So one is going to be one-to-one coaching, and the other one is going to be the more team-based coaching. The team-based coaching is where you'll have access to the app. So it's this side of things that I'm talking about now. You have access to the app the other way as well, but you'll have your own program and everything in that. The way that I'm doing this is, I'll just call it the app for simplicity, is you'll sign up to that. You will get the first month free whilst I've still got the free code active. So if it isn't active, then you missed it, it's too late. You'll get a month for free. During that month, you get access to all of the programs inside of it. You can pick and choose whichever one you want. You'll also get access to the members area. Inside the members area, you can ask as many questions as you want. You can get feedback on technique. You can do whatever you want. The difference is I'm not then manually going in and changing your program. You can change your program based on any feedback and stuff from in the area, and you can change the different things you want. So that means that this is a lot cheaper than when I'm the one specifically doing it. So you can go in, you can use the app and just leave it as is and run the programs. That's what they're designed for. But you can also combine that with the members area, and in the members area, I'm in there every day going through technique and stuff anyway. So you get the benefits of both, but it's a lot cheaper. Um, but what I'm trying to get sorted out is so the access for the free month, so you can get the members area for free as well. But if you cancel, you'll lose access to the app. But at the minute, if you cancel, you won't lose access to the members area because I haven't figured that bit out yet because they're two separate platforms. So I need to get that set up as well because the idea is if you are, so I get, because of the nature of people that I work with the strength training stuff, a lot of the stuff is getting people to that first 2 or 3 plate bench. Just by nature of it, that first 2 plate bench tends to get lots of guys at like 16, 17, 18, 19. For them, what I'd say is download the app, subscribe for free, and then cancel your subscription. So download the app, subscribe, literally get pen and paper and copy down the programs that are in there. Obviously, I don't want people to do that long term, but like for the people that just genuinely don't have the money for any kind of coaching, copy down all the programs, use the members area for free for that month whilst you've got it, and then cancel it. But they need to then lose access to the members area because obviously that's going to be valuable. And the idea there as well is, so when I'm coaching my clients one-to-one, they'll individually get the feedback and everything. Whereas when it's in the members area, it'll be these are the days and the times that I'm going through. So that will be fixed regardless of if there's 5 people or 10 people. It doesn't matter. It's the same every day. So this way I can help more people. And it then will mean that potentially if I need to, I can have other coaches help me out too. So anyway, this is a complete tangent, but so that's like a project work thing to do. So I have set days where I'm like, this block of time, that's all I'm working on. And then when I get other free slots of time, it's when I would do other things like the social media and whatever else. And then, yeah, that's it. So, with all that said, if you do want to sign up for the app, or if you are interested in actual coaching, you are more than welcome. Getstrongfeelawesome.com. And then for the free trial, it's /trial. So that's another thing as well. I haven't made a landing page for that. It literally just says, if you want to get signed up, here you go. That's like a long-term project, so it doesn't affect things right now, but does need doing at some point. So that I'll be like, I'll have a slot for an hour on a Saturday morning. That's like, just do one project like that. So just in an hour, get the landing page set up. I say set up like it will be perfect in an hour, but it might be just that I work on that for an hour, then maybe I do another hour on a Sunday or whatever. I'm just rambling at this point. So, and I've these to eat, and then we're going to see who we've got for the technique reviews, go through a couple of them, and that'll be it for today. And I will see you maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after. Who knows at this point? Like I say, there isn't a right lot to go through today. I'm mostly going to be doing this today. Look at that. I've actually got my, can you see my calf is off now? Now, granted, my calf is tiny now. Calves are both tiny, I should say. But still progress into it. The other thing I've been doing is pushing my knee down. I don't know if you can see that, into the bed, because my knees are slightly bent because I'm so heavy. I'm sat here. I don't actually know how much I weigh. I was 86, I think, when I left the hospital, but I was 100 when I went into the hospital. And the surgeon had told me to try and maintain being 100 kilos through the whole recovery. So, who knows? Right, technique review in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now. Today we have got 4 that I'm going to go through. Trying to get caught up. So first up we have Connor Bell. So we've got 130 kilos for this squat. Let's have a look. Connor's max is 140, so this is right up close to that max weight. Just turn the volume down a little bit. So the walkout's not bad. So the very first thing I would say on this is the shoes. So these are just running shoes, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but when you start to get to the heavier weights, they're not the most stable, so you'd be better off either with proper squat shoes or just flat feet, like flat shoes, not flat feet, flat-soled shoes like Converse or something, or just in bare feet. That would be not a bad idea, to be honest. So let's watch the actual squat. So the very first thing here is, as the squat starts, you can see he's in a lowish bar position. Bar is coming down nice and straight. And if I could just move this out of the way, that'll make this easier. So what I was just saying about his feet, you can see that ankle is collapsing in there and that ankle is collapsing in there. So watch the rep as he goes. This foot will roll in a bit further. There you go, and the heels start to lift up a little bit. Now a little bit is not a problem, but you can see how squishy those shoes are. So the very first thing is change the shoes if possible. Next thing is the very first squat. So the walkout was all right. I prefer it was a few less steps. That's not bad at all. Next thing is, when you start squatting, you don't actually brace before you start the movement. You just go straight down into it. So when I say brace, I mean pushing out into the belt that you've got. You have got very long femurs relative to the length of your torso. It could be the angle to a certain extent, but that's always going to mean that you're probably going to end up leant forward a little bit into your squat. So if you look at the bottom position here, so you hit the bottom position there. So with all of these techniques, this is based on day 3 in 14 strong, and there are 4 principles that we look at for the technique. So 1, is it safe? And by safe I mean inherently safe. So there's no necessarily good or bad technique, but like there's nothing just stupid going on. You're not like trying to do a 1 rep max squat wearing heels or something like that. Is it consistent? So that's the next thing, is each time you're doing the reps, are they the same? Because your body adapts to what you give it. So if you, for example, if you always deadlift with a rounded spine, you will get strong deadlifting with a rounded spine. So is it consistent? Is it repeatable as well? So the same thing with, can it be the same each time? So for example, bench press is a good one of that. Of some people will only bench part of the weight down. Now, if that's how you always bench, fine. But if it's just an arbitrary distance that you go and you don't have a way of measuring it, it's not repeatable. So that opens it up to being inherently more risky. Because say, for example, you normally bench and you go to 2 inches above your chest, and then one day with a heavy weight, you accidentally go to 1 inch below. That's how you blow off a pec. That's how you end up tearing something. So safe, consistent, repeatable. And the last one is it causing you pain? So it sounds really silly, but if the exercise is causing you pain, then it's probably either the load you're using or the way you're doing it that's causing you an issue. So like if, for example, deadlifting with a rounded back always hurts your back, lay off from that for a while. You're obviously not strong enough to handle being in that position. So that's more of like a common sense one, but that's the framework I look at. And then the next thing I would look at with this is I'm looking at this in the context of powerlifting. So when I talk about things like I'm about to say about the squat depth on this, that's in the context of powerlifting. You squat as deep as you want to. If I was training for bodybuilding, hypertrophy, I'd be squatting as low as physically possible. So I would be getting your hips down here into that kind of position, so you're as deep as physically possible, so you're getting the most amount of work for your quads and for your glutes, so you're actually getting that big range of motion. If it's powerlifting, your hip crease, which is there, needs to be below the top of your knee, which is there. So at the minute, top of your knee is there, hip is there. It needs to be much, much lower down to get that. At the minute, it's below it, it's below it, it's above it. So your hip is going to want to be here. Now the problem you're going to run into is because your femurs are quite long, so the femur is the name for the bone in the top half of your leg, you're going to have to push your knees even further out so that your hips can get further down. You also are potentially going to end up with your torso more angled horizontally towards the ground, just because of having this short upper body. And there's nothing wrong with that. It will mean that in comparison, you probably be quite a good deadlifter. So like different leverages can affect different people. So what I would suggest for you is, the big thing is first, shoes. I would go bare feet or something more stable. Next thing is in terms of your depth, I'd be trying to get a bit lower, so I'd be pushing the knees out a little bit so you can sit your hips further down. The other thing is, depending on what your goal is, so if your goal, for example, is hypertrophy, then I would consider looking at getting some wedges to go under your heels. Now this long term won't this short term won't affect anything like your flexibility or whatnot, but it will artificially give you extra ankle range of motion so that you can have your knees further forward, so you can sit your hips further down whilst you work on the mobility to get your knees further out so that your hips are more open and out the way so you can sit further down. So I would work on your squats deeper from that perspective, and I would be doing lighter paused squats, trying to get this position of your hip just that little bit lower. If you're not competing for powerlifting, then I would do the movements that feel safe for you, and I wouldn't be going crazy with the load. So this is 130 kilos, like I said, which is pretty close to your max. So that's based on the first rep. But if we go towards the second rep, that's where we see more breakdown. So I don't know if you saw, I'll finish playing the rep, but it's quite subtle, but you basically lose your balance forwards. So let's just go back to the beginning of the rep. So you come down. If you watch the bar path here, it's lovely and straight. So straight, straight, straight. And then just as you hit the hole there, so this rep, you're actually, I would say, at depth there. So your hip crease is there, which is below the top of your knee there. So this would pass in most powerlifting. So this one, depth is actually better. But because you haven't moved your knees out to get into that position, what happens is just as you hit this bottom position here, you'll see the bar starts coming forwards there and it starts rolling. Now, I think the reason for that is because you're not strong in that position. So what lots of people will tell you to do is, when you're in this position here of where you kind of start to try and good morning it, lots of people will say that the weakness is your erectors. It's not. The weakness is your knee extensors, because what they're doing is moving your hips into a position that they're stronger so they can take the load. So you need to do more direct quad work. And the other thing as well is, just looking like objectively, you can see your quads are relatively not as developed as, for example, your glutes. So that would be my suggestions for you, Connor. I do apologise. And I will send you this video once it is uploaded. So, next up we have Hugh. So, Hugh has a. Nope, this is the wrong video. Next up we have Hugh. So, Hugh has actually got a massive bench, 185 kilos here. So, this is in competition as well. GPC, so different powerlifting federations have different rules in terms of foot position, head position, bar position, that sort of stuff. So let's have a look at this and we shall see. Just turn the volume down on this. So hand out, nice grip on the bar. You'll notice in some federations you have to have your heels down, but Hugh hasn't got his heels down. If because that's allowed, so that's fine. Lovely. So, great lift there, 185 kilos, 3 white lights, very happy man. Now, with your bench, obviously, I don't bench that much. My max bench is 170. I'm a fair bit lighter, but handling that kind of weight is different. It's just a lot of different load on your body. So, the first thing I would look at is just because of the angle, let's look at your feet and your knees. So, your knee is below your hip, which is a good thing. That's what we wanted. So that position there is good. Next thing is your feet aren't actually the same on both sides. Now it could just be the angle, but looking at the distance from this tile out, on both sides it looks like this side is further out than this side. But like I say, that could just be the angle. But I would try and make sure that's even on both sides. Now, if we go back to the actual lift, the lowering of the bar is very, very controlled. So there's plenty of control there into that bottom position. I like the pause as well. Obviously, it's in competition anyway, but you're not sinking the bar into your chest. You see the bar is fully flat, and then when you start pressing, it comes up immediately. There's a good tuck underneath the bar here, so you've got your elbow directly under the bar in a nice position in your hand, so that's great. And then what's going to happen is as you press back up, instead of pressing up in this angle towards the spotters, what you're doing, which is a good thing, is you're pressing back in a J shape like that. So if you watch the bar is going to kind of move towards the background and then come up straight. So what I will do is just play that. So you see as you come back there, so you're showing more of your bicep. So you've gone from this position there, you're showing more of the inside of your arm to the people in front of you, and then locking out the position. And then the bar slows down, you lock it out. So for you, Hugh, your weakness is actually about here. So most people, when they're looking at weaknesses, they think the weakness is when the bar is slowest. It's not. The weakness is just before that point because the bar has started decelerating to the point at which it's slowest. So what that means is you need to work on the point just before that. So for you, that point is here because the bar is moving and then it slows down there. So most people would say your weakness is there and you need to be hammering more tricep work when that's not true because you've got the bar moving again from that position and you start accelerating. That means that's actually a strong position to be in. So your triceps are not the weak point in this movement. Your weak point in this movement, I think, is your delts through that position there to get forwards. Your pecs have helped you pop it off the chest and now your delts are involved heavily and then your triceps have got to lock it out. So for you, I would spend more time working on your front delts. Now, at the minute, I think you said you already bench 2 or 3 times a week. I would consider some of the accessory work moving it towards the front delts, so you're actually getting that movement going. And then the other thing is, I would just work on the technique to make sure that transition point, like that J-shaped press, is nice and smooth rather than being sort of a bit jarred. But other than that, this is a lovely press and very, very strong. So great work, man. Now, next thing, best accessory lift. So yeah, so for yourself, working on your front delts, I think is really going to help. So front raises like with a barbell at your bench grip will help you a lot. dumbbell presses on like a higher incline will help too, and then more actual bench work. I'd be keen to see the rest of your training, but obviously for the sake of this, I can't see it for that. If you were to do a velocity analysis on that too, it would show what I just said about where your weakness is. So then the actual question that you had was, do you prefer to schedule deloads or go by feel? So for deloads, it very much depends on the person and it depends on the phase they're at in terms of their training and prep for events and stuff. So if I have someone who's like a complete beginner, for them I will schedule deloads because they don't know when they're overtrained or undertrained or whatever. So I would actually opt on the side of more safety. When they're more of an intermediate lifter, I would be more likely to do them as and when we need to because they'll be starting to be aware of their body and we just don't know what level they're at. So this also depends on how long I've been working with someone. But for example, when I get an intermediate lifter, we might start a training phase and we might be doing, say, 100 kilos of work in the first week, whereas their effective work might not be until 400 kilos. So we might have spent the first 3 weeks building up to that, and that hasn't been causing them much in the way of fatigue. Then if we were to deload on week 4, it's pointless. So for these kind of lifters, I would see how it goes, basically, see how performance goes, because you get people who peak in different ways as well. That's a bit complex for the sake of what we're talking about here. And the more advanced lifters, I'll be more inclined to deload them proactively unless they're in like an off-season phase. So if you've got competitions and we've got things planned out, I would be like, deloads are going to be this week, this week, this week. Unless something comes up, that means it's got to be drastically different. When they're in the off season, the reason I wouldn't always deload them on the set time periods is more because when you're a very advanced lifter, you might just have some of those training sessions where you're just on. And like when it takes you like 4 months to add 2.5 kilos to a lift, if you have a good day and it's off season, it's not going to affect other stuff, and you're like, today it's on, and you get a 5 kilo, 10 kilo PB or something, brilliant, have at it. But then we might need to bring a deload forwards because you've done that, it's gone a bit maximal or whatever. But that would only be like away from competitions and stuff. I wouldn't do it if it's going to interfere with other stuff that's planned. And also, as an advanced lifter, you'll have more awareness of your body and the difference between tired and actually starting to be burnt out and actually needing a deload. Because most people don't really know what it feels like to need a deload. Most people just think they need a deload. So that's the thing, like, you get two opposite ends of the spectrum. People that don't train hard enough to need a deload, and the people that consistently just train too hard and they end up forced to have deloads because they've just ended up injuring themselves. But anyway, with that said, great work, great lift. I see like some pretty low hanging fruit for you there. They can definitely improve on. So next up we have David. So I don't know the weight on this because it's bumper plates, but David has a squat. I know David has had a pretty bad injury in the past, so that has affected things. So a few different things here before we even get started. So David has, now how do I wipe this? That would be a good question, wouldn't it? Nope, that's not the one. That's to select. You know what, let me just turn the fade on. So David has squat shoes on here, so you can see by the raised heel. And the next thing is David is being sensible and having the safety rails. I'm not looking how high they're looking. I suspect the squat's going to be high. And David is squatting with knee wraps on. So knee sleeves will help you a small amount. Knee wraps will help you a big amount. But not actually in the way that David is squatting. So let's finish watching the rep. Squat, back up, nice and steady. Okay. I'm going to guess this is about 180, 190 or so. So, a few things. Belt is very, very high here. You typically don't tend to see the belt that high for squats, more so it would only be for deadlifts. That might just be a practical thing of where feels comfortable. The next thing I would say is, for yourself, you're not actually getting that much out of the knee wraps. And the reason I say that is, when you look at the lowest position you're at here, your knees are roughly at 90 degrees there, maybe a bit less than that. So what that means is all the knee wraps are doing is trying to move your leg back in that direction. So you're only actually getting this much help from them. Whereas if you were in a position like this, of where you drive your knees really far forwards when you squat, you would actually get more weight out of the knee wraps rather than less. So the knee wraps would help you more if you squatted with your knees further forwards. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of your injury. That might be why you're wearing them. In that case, I would probably be inclined to be squatting lighter, so you have less of an issue with that, but that's personal preference. Next thing is, same thing with the depth of your hip crease is about there, and your top of your knee is there. I think we're at the bottom of the rep. Let's keep going. There we go. So yeah, this would be high in basically any real federation. The ones where it wouldn't be would be in like equipped squatting, where they just let you squat high for some reason. So what I would suggest for you is similar to what I said to Connor, is trying to get your knees out a little bit more so you can just get your hips that bit lower. I actually don't think it would make too much of a difference if you just went from knee sleeves to knee wraps based on the way that you're squatting. And then the thing with your belt as well, if that feels comfortable for you, great. If not, it's not really going to be helping here. So what you have with your spine is you have different sections of it. So your spine kind of looks like this. Is this accurate? Ah, made it fade, didn't I? Let's try again. I realise this doesn't look the best anyway. So this is your spine. Let's separate it into sections. Like I say, I'm aware that it's not like perfectly accurate. So here we have the top, which is your cervical spine. So your head is here. Lovely smiley face, and you're happy. That's terrible. This top part from your sort of the base of your skull down to the top of your rib cage. This bit is your cervical spine. This bit is not really impacted too much by squatting because the weight sits here on your body. The next bit here is essentially held together by your ribs. Again, super accurate drawing, I know. So what that means is there's all the muscles around it as well, but there's your ribs too, helping hold these vertebrae essentially in place. It's not in place. That's not accurate. It's more support, if you like, for the system. It's more solid stuff in the middle. And then you have your lumbar spine down here. You have your coccyx and your circumcoccyx down here too. So typically where people wear their belt is around here. And what that means is you can use the muscles in your torso, the lower part of your torso, to brace against the belt for support. However, you are wearing your belt up here, so there isn't really too much that your belt will be helping you support in this position. It's very, very unusual. It would be very unusual if your thoracic spine, which is this bit here, would be the limiting factor with a squat. Whereas you do occasionally get people where it's more like their lumbar spine is a limiting factor with a squat. So I'd be interested to know why you have it so high, and how you found it helps you. And then also in terms of goals and stuff, if it's looking for competing, definitely going to need to get knees further out. If it's just for general strength, I'd lose the knee wraps, start working on going deeper. Huge fan of using the safety setup. And apart from that, good work, man. Now, next thing we'll go on to is your questions. So I use conjugate, but a week 10 in the last 3 cycles I've been out. Should I maybe put a deload week around week 8? So conjugate is a training system that was popularised by Westside Barbell, Louis Simmons. It's butchered by so many people. I'm going to assume you're doing it in the way that it's intended, but conjugate essentially is it's essentially concurrent training. It's training different traits at once. If you're doing it in like the traditional conjugate style, you would have a max effort upper, a max effort lower, dynamic effort upper, and a dynamic effort lower. And then the way they tended to do it was rotating out exercises depending on the specific block and stuff. It might be weekly, every other week, every month. That's going to vary person to person. So just saying conjugate is very broad, but I'm just going to assume it's with that like base template that most people do. In terms of the deloads, so like I was saying to Hugh before, that depends on the athlete. But if you know that after roughly 8 weeks, 10 weeks worth of training, you start to burn out, then it could be a case that at week 9 you could have a deload because you know that week 10 things just fall apart. I tend to find for most people they don't tend to get that long into a training block without needing some kind of deload or some kind of load management. It doesn't have to be a traditional deload, but some kind of like backing off. Or you might have it where you've got back offs within each training week. You might have it over the longer time period, but it does vary person to person. And this comes off the back of one of the days inside 14 Strong, is about deloads and essentially talking about the importance of them and how to incorporate them. So what I would probably do is look at your programming, see when things happen. So for example, is it that you burn out and feel tired, or is it that you burn out, take a couple of easy days and you hit new PBs or PRs, depending on where you are? So I would have a look at that and then make a decision. But it sounds like if you've got a pattern of you always burn out, take a deload a little bit before. Better to be preemptive, stay safer longer term, be able to train longer than ending up getting injured. So, and as always, you can send more messages and stuff, or join the app and member site so you can ask me as many as you want. And then, because you'll only have the two maximum of the two technique reviews on this. Before that will be your quota. So sorry about that. Last thing is Matt. So Matt has got a big old squat here. Let's have a look at this. 237.5. What's that in 237.5 times 2.20 for 523 pounds. Right, first thing we'll talk about with Matt is bare feet. Big fan. Knee sleeves and spotter, nice and safe. And the rack is set up, and you see where the belt height is here, in contrast to say your last one, David. This is typically where I would expect the belt to be. This is quite a high-ish bar placement, but it's difficult to tell with this angle. And these bars are quite whippy, especially using bumper plates. So let's have a look. Not bad. So there's just a few little things here. So one thing that we can look at in the beginning is as you come down, you can see I would say this is going to be depth in most circumstances. Because of the angle being from below, it's not always the easiest thing to tell. But if we look, I think your hip is going to be about here, which means it's just about in line, if not tiny bit below. But if you look at that angle of this going, excellent, that was a terrible drawing. If you look at the angle of the bar, that makes me think that if we turn it that way, it would actually be, you can't see me turning it, can you? It would actually be just in depth, if not very, very borderline, probably like a 2-to-1. And then the next thing is your feet stay the whole rep. Your feet stay in a good position. You don't lose your arches, your knees are coming out, your feet stay in a good position. Good, 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 good. It's only like right at the very top you kind of come up on your toes, but that doesn't matter too much. That's just, I think you're just getting ready to re-rack. The only thing I would do here is take a bit longer before racking the weight. So for yourself, as you come up, you can see there's a disproportionate rise of your hips compared to the bar. So your hips come up here faster than the bar comes up here. So if you just watch that there, you see your hips come up disproportionately more than that. So again, you never guess, weakness is knee extension. Weakness is your quads in this circumstance. And then what happens is then the bar slows down, but that's not actually your sticking point, as I said before. So your sticking point is here, and then the bar slows down. So here is your weakness, because what's ended up happening is when you've been in the bottom position, you've started the squat there, then your quads have essentially shifted the weight back onto your glutes to straighten you out. And then your glutes are having to work, and they're going to be at their maximum capacity, which is then how you have to finish the rep there. And then obviously your knees are extended. Now, this final bit of knee extension here, no issues there at all for you. So what I would suggest for you is squats, more squat work. Always more squat work, more quad work. It's a very, very common theme, you'll notice. More quad work. And also, I would be doing some pause squats too, just to reinforce that bottom position. What I would potentially look at is doing a couple of training phases back to back. So the first block, maybe you do more pause work. Second block, you maybe do some eccentrics. Third block, you maybe do some more concentric work, like super maximally. but obviously that's going to depend, and this is just based off one squat clip. But overall, pretty good, man. Now, the next thing is you asked for help with the nutrition stuff. So, what we do with nutrition is we take your weight, so 115. We're going to take your protein, which is going to be 2 to 3 grams per kilo. Now, because you're a big guy, we'll go on the lower end of that because otherwise, practically, it gets fairly inconvenient to eat that much. So let's say we're going to go with 230 grams of protein, so that's 2 grams per kilo. Next thing is fat. So we're going to go for a maintenance phase. So 0.5 to 1. So that'll be 115 to 230 grams of fat a day. So if we go in the middle of that, I think it's like 86 point something, but let's just go with 90 grams of fat. And then your calories is going to be body weight times 20 to 30. Now, this is not perfect. This is just as a starting point. So if we go for 20 to 40, sorry. So if we go for 30 as like the mid-range, so that would be 2,875 calories would be your starting target. So within that, 230 grams of protein, 90 grams of fat, and then the remaining calories will come from carbs. So there are 4 calories. I need to go to sleep. There are 4 calories per gram of protein. So 230 times 4 gets your calories from protein. There are 9 in each gram of fat, so 90 times 9, 810 calories. And then if you take them away from the 2,875, you'll get about 1,100 and something. Divide that by 4 is your 285 grams of carbohydrates. That is what I would do for your starting point for the calories and macronutrients. What you will probably find and what I would expect is you might actually drop a little bit of weight on that. So then I would just increase that if you do want to maintain. I would track for a week or two and then go from there, make any changes you need to. Biggest thing I see, well, there's two really, with powerlifters and strength athletes in general. The first one is they just don't eat enough protein, and it's such like a common thing, and it's like a big like influencers like eat more protein, more protein. Actually, it's common. Like I've had people that can squat 250 and they eat like 120 grams of protein a day, and it sounds ridiculous because like they've clearly made great progress. So on the one hand, massive amounts of protein aren't necessary, but on the other hand, when they do start eating more protein, their performance improves even more. Protein doesn't need to be crazy high, so I say 2 to 3 grams per kilo. For most people in reality, it's the 2 gram side we go for. The reason I have the upper range is more just so people don't go crazy and have like 4, 5, 6 grams per kilo, because the biggest issue with that, apart from being expensive, is it means you can have less carbs, and carbs are inherently more anabolic than protein is. So protein is a binary, you're either getting enough or you're not. So that's why we go with the 2 grams per kilo. In enhanced athletes, it might be slightly different, but not significantly. I'm assuming for these videos people aren't, but who knows? Just based on the weights that are being lifted, some people might be. I don't know. So that would be what I would do with the nutrition stuff, and then with the bench. So you said you're struggling with the bench, and you've had a plateau with your training. Now, obviously, I've not seen your bench, so I don't know what your issue is there. If you go to the second technique review, if you've not submitted one, you can submit one for that. I'll have a look at it and a plateau with your training. There are so many causes that it could be. Typically, it's to do with load management and exercise selection. They're the first big things that I tend to look at with people. So, for example, say someone is really, really good at strict pressing and they just do loads of strict pressing and their bench isn't improving, it might be because their front delts are no longer the limiting factor and their pecs are. And it might just be a case of like, right, 2 training blocks, dumbbell press, jobs are good and bench improves. Like it's just problem solving. It's quite fun to do, but it's relatively straightforward. The other thing with the load management is just looking at how much training you're doing and progression with it. So most people don't actually track their training. They don't know what they were doing. They don't know what they're going to do either. There's no plan. So getting some kind of plan in place. Now, with all of these, if you want yours doing, you can either join Get Strong app and coaching, team coaching, for free for a full month, then 29 quid a month after if you want to stay. Or you can do 14 Strong for free, just 2 weeks. There's 2 weeks worth of stuff. You can go through it all in an afternoon if you want, but it will take me. So at the minute, I'm just kind of clearing these videos from my time in hospital. But after that, the plan is going to be to try and get them uploaded roughly a week after the submission. So that gives me time to get them uploaded, get the YouTube videos and everything done. If you do join the members area. There will be these in more or less every day, but we'll be going in more detail, and obviously I'll know more about your training, so we can go from there. Right, that shall be it for the day. Let me figure out how to turn this off, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.